Have you ever wanted to make a cyanotype animation like this? Or like this? My name's Sophia, and I'm an artist who specializes in Cyanotype. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I make my Cyanotype animations. If you don't know what a Cyanotype animation is, it's basically stop motion, but with cyanotypes. You print each frame by hand, digitize them, and bring them to life as an animation. It takes ages, but the end aesthetic is totally worth it. First, you're going to need an idea of what you want to make. If you're new to this, my advice would be to start small, maybe a few seconds. I wouldn't go beyond 20 seconds. It doesn't matter what you put in your sequence, just keep in mind it'll be printed as a cyanotype. So you want to choose clips that will work with that medium. You're also going to need some editing software. I use Adobe Premiere, but you can also use DaVinci Resolve. I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure anything else won't allow you to export the video like we need to. So try to stick to those programs. And as a heads up, I will also be using Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop later down the line. To begin with, I thought I'd start off showing you the cyanotype animation that I'm making, and we can go from there. So that's my final edit for my sequence. I've decided to try some more experimental effects to see how they'll turn out, but I honestly have no idea if they'll work or not. So I'm going to give it a go anyway. Fancier edits aren't guaranteed to work, so if you're new to this, start simple. The sequence you just saw was HD 1080p 24 frames per second, which is not what we want, so we will make some settings changes. So once you've made the video and you're happy with it, we're going to change the frame rate. Right-click on your bin and create a new sequence. This one is automatically set to HD 1080p 24 frames. But if we head over to settings, here we can change the frame rate to 12 frames per second. You can do high frame rates. However, 24 or 25 frames per second will create double the work, and I think 12 looks just as good, especially if you're making one of these just for fun. On that note, this is a good opportunity to do some math. The video I'm making is 25 seconds long. Seeing as there are 12 frames per second, it means that my cyanotype animation is going to have 300 cyanotype frames, which is a lot. Now I'll be printing 6 frames per A4 page, which means I will have 50 A4 cyanotype pages to print. So make sure you do the math before you commit to your animation. They can be a lot of work. Okay, back to Premiere. Next, we're going to copy and paste our 24 frames per second sequence into this new sequence. Once that's done, we're going to make our video black and white. For speed, I'm going to create a new adjustment layer and drag it to be the top layer on my timeline. I'm going to go to Effects, pick black and white, and drag it over. I find this to be the fastest way to get everything black and white. We can edit this more at a later step. This is what it looks like now. Once you review it and are happy, we're going to export the sequence. There's no turning back from here, so do be sure you're happy with the video. Go to Export. Choose an empty folder it's going to go. And under Format, find JPEG. This is going to export each frame of the video as individual images. So now we have all of our frames as images. Here they all are in the folder. Next step is to open them all up in Lightroom. Here we can go through and make adjustments to our frames. I focus on creating contrast and the blacks and highlights. Basically, I go through and make edits as to what I think will look good as a Cyanotype negative. Compared to my limited edition prints, when I do Cyanotype animations, I'm much more relaxed about these edits. I'm not going to show you me going through and editing all 300 frames, but hopefully you get the idea. Once you have done that, we're going to export them as A4 pages. To do this, go down to the timeline at the bottom and click Command A to select all of the frames. Now go to Print. First, they will probably come up as one image per page. We don't want that. What we want is a contact sheet. First, we will click Rotate to Fit. Next, I'm going to put a border around each frame. This will come in helpful later on. To do this, select Stroke Border, and then pick a mid-grey tone. Now go to Page Grid and make 2 rows and 3 columns. Then we're going to make some gaps by changing the cell spacing a little. Now I'm going to go down to Page Options and select Page Number. And finally, below that, I'm going to click on Photo Info, and here change the default from File Name to Sequence. Finally, go to Printer, click PDF, and hit Save. Getting all those page and sequence numbers in there is super important, as when you are scanning, you want to know the order of your images. And if you lose track, it is a nightmare. Now you have a PDF that looks something like this. Now I'm going to show you the way that I turn them into negatives. There might be a better way of doing this, but this is the way I do it. I open each page in Photoshop, invert the image, flip horizontally, and save it as a new PDF. It's a bit of a tedious process, but it works. If you have a more efficient way of doing this, do that instead. Once you are done and have turned them all into negatives, do a check to make sure everything is there, and then it's time to print. If you need help knowing the best way to print these, feel free to check out my other video, How to Make Perfect Digital Negatives for Cyanotype. So here are the negatives, and we are ready to print them. Hopefully you already have a good handle on printing Cyanotypes. If you need a refresher, please check out my video, How to Make Cyanotypes Like a Pro. This printing day was a little bit crazy for me. We were in the first week of spring here in New Zealand, which means a short UV window. And this was the most suitable day for printing as the weather forecast was predicting rain for the following week. Not only that, but there was only a small sunny patch on this day, so I had to do as many as I possibly could at once to get them all done. I use an acetate sheet to do all my outdoor printing, which works great, but I also don't usually put this many prints under it as the sheet curls when it heats up. Long story short, a few animation frames came out blurry as they didn't have the weight keeping the negative flat. We'll see how they go. One thing you may have noticed is that I decided to print my A4 negatives onto A3 sheets. This seemed more practical as it meant less paper to handle during the printing process, and it's easy enough to cut them to size once they're dry. Now that's done, we wait for them to dry. So after flattening and cutting to A4 size, it's time to digitize our Cyanotypes. There are a couple ways to do this. I have a scanner and I scan each page at 1200 dpi. I scan them in their numbered order and I get the scanner to turn each frame into its own JPEG. But I make sure I leave the sequence number in the scan. This way I will avoid confusion if things get mixed up down the line. The other way you can digitize, which I haven't tried but I've seen other artists do online, is take photographs of each page instead. Either way works, so do what's easiest for you. But be sure you get really flat and straight on final images of your frames. Once you've done all this, you should have a folder that looks something like this. And remember how we put borders on our images when we were making our contact sheet? Well, as you can see with these examples, having that border is really helpful for showing the edge of the frame, which will come in handy at the next step. So let's turn this all into an animation. In Premiere, we're going to make a new sequence. Here I chose HD 1080p 25 frames per second. Next, go to Sequence Settings and change the frame rate to 24 frames per second. We're then going to drag our folder with all the scans into our project. And as you can see, all of them are now ready to be put into the sequence. Here I'm also checking to make sure they are all in their correct order too. Next, to make things easier, we're going to change the length of time each image is going to be when it gets put into the sequence. Highlight all of your scans, right-click and go to Speed Duration. Now under Duration, change it from 5 seconds to 3 frames. Frames are the final 2 numbers. Then drag the images into the sequence. Here I'm copying and pasting my music over so I can make sure it's in sync. If, for whatever reason, they don't sync up like your edit, feel free to go back to Speed Duration and try different durations until you get it right. You can also see in that quick preview that the images are much bigger than what is in the edit. This is because I scanned at 1200 dpi, which is much bigger than HD. This means I now have to change the size of my images to fit correctly. To do this, start by clicking on your first image and go to the Effects controls. Then change the scale. What I'm doing here is trying to find the scale percentage that is the size of the frame, and for me, it's 38%. Now I'm changing the position of the clip so it lines up correctly. When I do this, I choose one corner to line up to. And for this animation, I've chosen the bottom left corner. This way, when we go through all the frames, they are all being aligned to the same target. And now we go through every single image and do the same thing. Adjust the scale to 38% and reposition the image so that the bottom left corner is lined up. I found when I was doing this, some of the scans were wonky. When those images came up, I also adjusted the rotation so they were straight. Here's an example. So yeah, go through every single one of your images and do these actions. It can take a little bit of time, and I did this over a couple of editing sessions. You'll notice when you play back that the imagery will bounce around a little bit. That's normal and shows that everything just isn't lined up exactly. If you want, you can try to get more exact, but for me, I just accept this as part of the aesthetic of Cyanotype animation. Once I got to the end and I played through the animation, I noticed a couple of things. First, along the edges. Because it's not lined up exactly, sometimes there were frames that showed white or what was around the image on the original print. So to fix this, I just went through and changed all of the scan to 39% and it cropped it all out. When you scan at a high DPI, it gives you wiggle room to make different adjustments in the edit, which is great. Which is why I was able to do this next change. I decided that I didn't really like the look of the shot of the waterfall water having a blue border around it, and I thought it would look nice if the main image took up the whole frame. So I changed this shot scale to zoom in to 49% to crop out the frame I had in my original edit. Once these changes were made, I was done and I exported the sequence as a QuickTime. So, here is the final animation. I'm into it. What do you think? This animation for me is an experimental piece about water and air. I'm into the elements at the moment. Anyway, now you know the step-by-step process on how to make a Cyanotype animation. My recommendation is to use this as a guide. If there are any parts of the process that you can think of a different way of executing, then give it a go. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe for more Cyanotype tutorials. And as always, feel free to reach out to me in the comments section if you have any questions. I love hearing from you.